Good evening. This is the Redevelopment Agency meeting for January 24th, 2012. Let the roll call reflect that all board members are present with the exception of Board Member Van Hoosier and Board Member Wicks, who have asked to be excused. First on the agenda is a report from administration on the Ogden River redevelopment area.
Council Member Garner, Council members, Mayor, before us tonight is the sale of the property located at 1953 Washington Boulevard and coinciding also the development agreement that was referred to, and that was a question that was asked on, which is part and parcel of the sale. As part of the history, this particular parcel that is in front of you was subdivided in 2007 in the form that it is now. The parcel that is referred to right here was originally sold in 2006 and then was later resold to America First in 2008. This parcel was sold approximately in 2006. So between that and now 2012, this parcel was originally sold last year, as you're all aware. And so now we're coming to the parcel of the sale, proposed sale of this particular parcel. That is its current configuration. The proposed configuration at sale, which we are going to try to get on here. Amy is going to, there we go. So it's oriented north at the top of the page. You'll notice that the re-subdivision, so the lot alignment and lot change would be here. The city maintaining this parcel and adding it to this additional parcel, and it's moved over, so the footprint will fit in here. This is the right-of-way as has been described. And so that is the footprint in which the new development would go into, and the new development and the meters would, and I can't get this all on, we'll get as much of it on there as we possibly can on the site plan. So this is the meters footprint. This is the open space or bocce ball court that's over here, and then the bocce ball court. I'm just seeing if you're awake. And then there's the area here. So this is the development pattern of the road as it's designed. You'll notice that there is basically the entry and then car stacking that goes here, and then if you watch it, it goes down to the end of the property. We've kept this back side of the property as a transitional element, which would actually have housing incorporated into that to transition into the neighborhood. And then this is the drive access to the America First area, and generally their lot line.
Is there bike parking factored into that?
There is bike parking. There is bike parking, and there are some other amendments that we'll go over as we go through the development agreement. Although it doesn't show on here, we do have spaces for the bike parking, and we've talked about that. So that's the history of the property, and then as we've gone through, the sale of the property is scheduled for, let me go through my, so the Rep C requires, that our Rep C goes through, requires the sale of 36,785,000 square feet, 0.84 acres. The sales price is $267,795, over $7 a foot. That amount is in excess of the appraisal. The closing costs will be divided equally, so we still have the soils remediation, which is, it's presented as an incentive. The one thing that I'd like to make sure that everyone understands is that's our obligation as the seller to make sure that that soil remediation is done, because we can't really convey clean and clear title with the soils issues that are there. So it's less of an incentive as more of a requirement that we pass the property. So the rezone that has been previously passed, I think, has been discussed. The developer is required to complete the construction of the location per the approved site plan that we've talked about. In the MU, under the MU design guidelines, the project must be completed by December 2012. The property must be closed by February 28th, so it's a relatively quick close, and the project will be done. Their intent is to have the project completed before the summer turns, and so we've gone through that particular part. The developer agrees in the development agreement to employ Ogden City contractors where available, and the utility extensions. The agency obligations are the 2 access roads to the project, Access Road 1 from Park Boulevard into the project, and Access Road 2. The agency will provide adequate utility capacity, which we will talk about. It is already developed. And also the agency will do the soil remediation up to a maximum of $54,810, and that's the cap. And you're wondering why it's an odd number. It's because it's a per square foot value, and it's based on the square footage. The council asked certain questions, which I've partly addressed, but will readdress as I go through the questions specifically that were asked. The terms of the Rep C on parcel number 03041-007 as 1953 Washington, as we've noted. It's 0.84 acres, 36,000. We've basically talked about the sales price. As stated, the closing date is February the 28th. The property needs to be closed, and we will pay up to $1.49 per square foot for soil remediation. That's where you get the figure. And it's subject to approval of the development agreement, and the development agreement basically provides that will, again, it seems a little bit tautological, but that will provide the soil remediation. The agency will provide access to the property at Park Boulevard. This access we estimate to be approximately $55,000. The agency to construct the access to the developer, that's $50,000 to $60,000. That's the agency to Park Boulevard. The agency to provide adequate utility stubs, which we believe are already adequate at the property site. And then we also, in this particular case, there were no additional incentives given on the property other than the property remediation and the access points. The rest of the tax increment will belong to the agency for use as the rest of the development continues. The third question that was asked is, please review the plans for costs associated with the 2 access roads. And I think I've answered those already. We're basically covering the access point up to the amount of money between $50,000 and $60,000 is our current estimate for that access point. There is a question that was asked outside of that will we receive remediation from America First? We are working on that particular as part of a pioneer agreement, but we do not have an answer to that tonight. It will take us a few weeks to get through that particular set of circumstances, but we believe that that is possible and probably is part of the interest of America First to have that developed, and because otherwise they'd have to pick it up as a development cost. But we have been running, as I think everyone is well aware, fast to get this particular project to meet the developer's schedule. Will the agency be contracting for the access roads? The issue there is we will be doing what is most effective. It doesn't make a lot of sense to re-provision 2 different construction elements. So we're working with the developer right now for them. Our preference is for them to basically to do that under our supervision and cost, and have them do it while they're all provisioned and doing their asphalt and the rest of that work. But that's also a detail that is not yet fully defined.
I'm a little puzzled. I understand there's a road from Park Boulevard. When you talk about a second road, is it just
That's
access onto Washington?
There's the road onto Washington, which is one of the accesses, and then there's a secondary
The one that goes through the bank? Is that what?
I've put this out here. There's a secondary access that will eventually come that comes from Park Boulevard, and that's its general orientation.
So where's the other road? I mean, I understand.
The road is right here.
Okay.
That's the
Okay.
double access. So those are the two parcels that we talked about. So this is the main road in which we put in, that's the shared site plan as you look at it here. So there's two halves of it. Half of it's on America First, half of it's on the petitioner's property right here. And so that's where we come in and we're helping develop that on both sides of that to provide access through to the property. Does that make sense? As it's shown in this particular situation, that basically shows the property line right here, this half over here, this 18 feet on this side, and then this part on this side. Now, am I going too fast?
No, that's,
So the 55,000 was for both of those accesses? Or is
Oh,
that
no,
just for the one?
Just for this
Just for the one.
particular access road.
Okay.
We don't have, in this particular other access, that's, that will be that's going to be developed by the developer over time as they go through and develop their parcel.
okay,
I
because
believe
that's not really clear in,
That's for both. Excuse me, I'm corrected, it's for both.
It is for both,
It is for
okay.
both, I'm sorry.
so we are covering the cost for both roads,
Yes.
but just not both of them right now? Is that,
We've allocated both right now, so,
we're doing both?
yes.
Okay.
What about the utilities? Are they developer or our responsibility?
Our responsibility is to develop them to the site, and that we already believe that they're sufficient for the developer's needs at this point. There's some questions as what are the risks risks that the RDA may incur in these agreements. We always face developer default in this particular case. This is a cash purchase and a cash development, which basically reduces our risk exposures significantly in that particular case because we're not selling subject to financing. So the only thing that the developer has is once the approvals are done, he has a brief review period in which he has to close the property. So the property then has to be closed. There is a secondary, there is a secondary risk that other owners will ask for the same exceptions, which is the drive aisle, and I think Greg has talked about that in the sense that in the front up to Washington, there really isn't another developable parcel that could accommodate a drive-through. The other issue, though, is that as we go down to Wall, which is way out in the future, somebody may ask for that same concession. And we'd probably approach it much the same way as we've done now. But we see that risk as being more remote and less likely. So I've kind of addressed those particular risks. This one is a relatively low-risk transaction. It's sell and build, and the project will be up and operating. The other question was, please explain why Neater's development will be a good addition to the Ogden River. We think this is kind of the quintessential addition because it meets the transition needs. It's basically something that provides access for those driving by, but also for the neighborhood. It's really hard to find a use that serves the neighborhood behind it as well. It's a fast casual dining environment, and it's something that we really want to recreate along the river because it also helps the existing business that's there, and they've been alone for a long time. So this synergy really helps pull people into the bike shop and into Slackwater Grill. We think that those synergies are really advantageous, especially at this particular point, because they've been over there as kind of a sole traffic generator for all these years. There's a significant new tax base, which I think we've talked about, which will, based on the diligence that we've done, shows the value to be somewhere between $1.3 million and $3 million worth of sales tax. Again, we can't underestimate the catalyst it'll be to the remaining lots along Washington and also along the river. We think that that'll also bring additional restaurants and other users to the area. The brand strategy, and we kind of look at it, it goes back to that being an almost ideal situation as something where you can get baked goods for the neighborhood, but you can also get a sandwich and the rest of those kind of things. And those things really fit into what we're trying to bring into the river as far as the generation. It'd be nice to get your eclair one or up and down and burn off the calories that you've gotten while you're eating over there. So it provides immediate local walk-up services to the adjacent neighborhoods, which we think is really important, and to the adjacent neighborhoods that are developing. It contributes to the continual commercial critical mass, which I don't want to overemphasize, but this also then, the critical mass that we're talking about is, along with what's happening with the South River project and this project, it creates momentum for America First to start building their project. It's easy for me to say.
Say it louder.
It creates, yeah, anyway. It also, and I've talked about the traffic that it'll create for the bike shop and the Slackwater Grill, and I think from their perspective, that's really something they've been looking forward to. As I indicated, the bike shop's been there for nearly 4 years, and they've really wanted somebody to keep them company. It also indirectly improves the marketability of the housing area because there's some amenities that'll be out there, and having the local commercial amenities is really important to know that you have something other than just a housing neighborhood, especially in the type of area we're trying to build, which is a walkable community. It's really nice to have services that you can walk to. On Saturday mornings, to walk up to the cafe, sit down and have breakfast and be able to enjoy the environment, take a walk, and those types of things. And we've talked about the momentum for the credit union. So I think that addresses the importance, and I hope I haven't overblown the importance of the project, but we think that this is really a key, a great small project that has far more impact than just its size would indicate, and it'll help us draw a lot there. The other part that I wanted to make sure is that it also, with the price that we're getting, increases the value of the ground that we're trying to sell, which is important to the RDA. As those property values increase, that helps us pay down our development costs and get the costs that we've sunk into that property and make sure that we get our full development costs back. So, and I think that we talked about also the tax increment and the sales tax that it'll generate. So with that, I'm more than willing to entertain any questions at this particular time.
Mr. Christopoulos, just one question, if you could just touch on again, is the pioneering agreement. We're putting, I think you said $55,000 to bring that road from Washington into the business.
For the two roads.
For the two roads. Right. And then America First, with part of the pioneering agreement, will, when they develop that property,
they'd repay us. And so that's one of the things we have to negotiate as we go to them. And our general sense is that they'll be acceptable to that. It's a development cost they have to take on. As we try to go through that, banks typically want to have drive accesses. Now, they may want to have a slight design variance on their side. We'll just stub. There won't be a curb on that side until they get ready to develop, but we'll develop full 18 feet of asphalt into their side, and they may cut back into that slightly when they develop their curb lines. We have a general plan right now as we've gone through it, and so we're running as fast as we can to talk to them and make sure they're acceptable. And we don't see that there's a major hurdle, but that part is not done yet. So. And I think in this particular situation, even if we were not to get a pioneering agreement, we would still recommend that we go forward because of the value of the project.
Thank you.
Can you address the tax increment? How much is that generated over the project that we're looking at here?
I hate to shoot from the hip. Total construction costs are, Brandon, we estimated what, $3 million? So $3 million, the tax valuation on that's about $30,000 a year total, and the increment is something less than that. So very rough is around $20,000 a year as I do the math in my head. At this hour of night, I wouldn't trust that math quite as much, but that's generally, it's the property tax is good and it comes in. The better part of it is generally the 0.5% that we get on sales tax as a direct point of sale, and then the other half that comes in general sales tax. So on a $3 million, that's another $30,000 a year that comes in. So for a small project, it's a fairly significant amount for the amount of square footage that's being done per square foot of sales. If you look at it, that's a tremendous amount of sales for a little tiny square footage. Okay.
Further questions? Thank you. Okay, at this time we'll receive public input specific to the sale of the property at 1953 Washington Boulevard. Seems there's no movement.
I will go ahead and make a motion that we adopt proposed resolution 2012-1.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Gochner and a second from Vice Chair Blair to adopt proposal of resolution 2012-1. This is a roll call vote.
Board Member Gochner,
Aye.
Board Member Heyer,
Aye.
Board Member Stevens,
Aye.
Vice Chair Blair,
Aye.
Chair Garner.
Aye. This resolution passes. Next, we'll have the developmental agreement with Four Foods Group and Mr. Christopoulos.
I think I hit them all, and I will I will review them one more time to make sure that we're all clear.
Mr. Chair, may I make note that there is a substitute document that there are copies that have been provided out in the foyer, and the council was provided this earlier via email.
And Mr. Christopoulos, will you touch briefly on those changes to that developmental agreement too?
Okay. The primary change was there was one question that was asked, is whether we could, in the development agreement, ask for a agreement by the developer that those that are in the stacking lines would have a sign that would ask them to turn off their cars instead of idling while they're waiting to pick up their sandwiches. The developer agreed to that particular provision. Was there anything else? I think that was the only amendment. There was a request for the pioneering agreement, and I addressed that. We just don't have an answer to that particular question. So that was those are the two amendments that I know that were asked for.
We have Janine Eller-Smith address the amendments. There are others.
Thank you.
There was just two other minor changes that were made to the document after it was published on Friday. One was just the addition of a word that was left out in the section relating to the requirement that the developer use local contractors. There was just a word left out. So it requires the contractor to use economically feasible means to use local contractors if it's possible. And the other one was just a clarification or a correction. There was a reference to a tax increment financing district, which is not technically a correct term. So we just made that correction to read that it's a redevelopment area in which tax increment can be drawn from for the city. So that with the addition of the idling language, there was just those three changes.
Thank you for that clarification.
And I guess in addition to just posting a sign, turn the key idle free, there was going to be some brochures kind of things inside the establishment?
I don't, there wasn't the verbiage. I don't think that we asked for brochures. We just got them to agree to the signage issue. We didn't ask for any kind of publication inside the store or anything else. We thought the signage was more than enough as they were driving through the lane that would basically instruct them, please turn off your car, and we didn't ask for anything else, did we?
No. We kind of figured that if they were in the lobby, they'd already turned their car off. So that might not be necessary.
I guess, just looking at some of that language that probably just barely got added, let me just read it to you. It says, promote and support the initiatives of Idle-Free Utah by offering campaign literature and brochures within the facility, as well as posting a Turn the Key, Be Idle-Free sign within the drive-through lane to encourage patrons to be conscious of the environment and to limit harmful vehicle exhaust emitted into the air by avoiding idling while they wait. Is that?
We stand corrected. Okay. I guess they did agree to that. They'll probably want us to see if we can find that literature for them so they can put it in their lobby.
Here's the distinction I made. That literature is already we didn't ask them to publish anything.
Gotcha. It's already available.
It's already available, and they were just going to make it available. And so if it's there, and I don't know how long that publication will be there, but they've agreed to do that. We didn't want to impose on their business costs to publish their own document.
I understand what you're saying.
So that was the distinction, I think,
in
my mind anyway.
And I think maybe speaking or not speaking for the board, we felt like that was pretty important because it's right next to the mixed-use zone that doesn't allow drive-through, so thank you.
Thank you. Okay. At this time, we'll receive public input specific to the developmental agreement.
And seeing no movement, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we adopt proposed resolution 2012-2.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Gochner and a second from Councilmember Heyer to adopt 2012-2.
Could you include that that's the substitute, please?
With the additional language, including the substitute development agreement.
And with those added amendments from the Councilmember Gochner and the second from Councilmember Heyer concurs, we'll now have a roll call vote.
Board Member Heyer. Board Member Stevens.
Aye.
Board Member Gochner.
Aye.
Vice Chair Blair.
Aye.
Chair Garner.
Aye. Thank you. This passes. Now is the opportunity to address the board regarding your concern or ideas for the Ogden Redevelopment Agency. City Council concerns should be expressed during a City Council meeting. Please state your name for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. No comments? Any comments from the RDA Executive Director?
Just say I appreciate the thoughtful consideration. I really believe this is a critical catalyst down there and a momentum builder for what we're looking to do, and I appreciate you passing that and letting us move forward with it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Other RDA staff?
Nothing, thank you.
Okay. And board members?
My mouth's watering already. This project, I think it's going to really add to the synergy of that development and hasten its continued growth.
And I would just like to second Councilmember Gochner's passion for clean air. And the Utah Health Department is kicking off a great campaign for Clear the Air. If you want more information, you can go to their website and see the efforts that are being made for that also. So, thank you.
With that, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
We have a motion from Councilmember Gochner and a second from Councilmember Heyer to adjourn the RDA meeting. This is a reminder that the council work session for RDA will be held immediately following the special redevelopment agency meeting. The purpose of the work session is to discuss the Ogden United Scholarship Program, the Ogden City School District Precinct reapportionment, and council business. Thank you.
To adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
I think you've already adjourned.
All in favor? Aye.
All in favor? Aye.